Hi, my name is Rogel Zamora, and I am a Filipino bisexual male. I'm from Fontana, California, and I just recently moved to San Dimas to focus on school. I'm a music education major at Cal Poly Pomona. I'm going into my fourth year at Pomona, studying the viola, but on the side I also study percussion. I started studying music at the age of 5. Living in a typical Asian household, I learned how to play the piano at a very young age. Throughout middle school, I learned the guitar. Going into high school, I wanted to play guitar for the jazz band, but jazz band at my high school was extracurricular, so in order to be a part of that, I had to learn another instrument for either the orchestra or the band. So after entering high school, I picked up the violin, and every year I switched off between violin and viola. And I fell in love with playing a stringed instrument, playing the viola, and I decided to choose that as my instrument of choice for my major. My parents were big followers of Catholicism, so it was slightly difficult growing up in my family with my parents because I was raised, that being gay was bad. I would be a sinner. I would be condemned, and I was always afraid of coming out to my parents. Prior to dating my ex-boyfriend, who I was with for 3.5 years, we were actually best friends. We actually met through our string orchestra, my second year, part of my high school's music program. And we got really close, especially with our experiences walking together to our mutual friends' debut practice, debut being sort of like the quinceañera for the Filipinos, but instead of 15, it would be 18. We would walk together to our mutual friend's debut practice, and having spent so much time together walking there, I would skateboard over to his house and we'd walk together. And then we'd obviously be spending time a lot at debut practice. We got to know each other really well. How we got together was one night we were hanging out at the park by my house, and he was waiting for a call or a message of some sort from his stepdad, who was out with his younger sisters at the park. He ended up coming back to my house, having dinner with me and my family, and we ended up at the end of the night going up to my room, just talking and getting close, and things just happened from there. Growing up in a Filipino household, I was always afraid of coming out to my parents, especially since they followed Catholicism pretty religiously, no pun intended. Especially being the oldest male child in the family, I didn't want to disappoint them. I am also a board member of Philippine American Studies Collective, also known as PASC. PASC's mission is to promote and bring about Filipino studies, specifically to try to get a Filipino studies minor under the Ethnic and Women's Studies department. This year, some of the topics that PASC is focusing on is identity. Especially coming from my experiences, I feel like we as Filipino American youth are starting to lose our sense of culture, as many people in the Philippines strongly look up to America as a role model. But with that, a lot of us, I feel that we are losing our sense of identity, especially with youth not learning Tagalog anymore at a young age as they used to, and also not learning or knowing much about our history due to our parents' shame for the amount of corruption that exists in the Philippines right now, despite how proud we actually are to come from there, or how proud our parents are to come from there. A piece of advice that I would give anybody, whether they were Asian, LGBT, or specifically, in my case, being Filipino, follow your dreams, be yourself, and do what makes you happy. Coming from my own experiences, my first 2 years at Cal Poly Pomona, I actually wasn't a music major. I was actually studying architecture, but having been told that architecture wasn't a stable job, I was recommended to switch to civil engineering, which I was okay with, because being an architecture major, or thinking about being an architecture major, I wasn't really good with drawing. I was better with calculations and math, so I thought that was the way for me. But after having not done so well in my first math class, my first calculus class, after taking a year off of calculus, studying statistics my senior year of high school, my first 2 years at Cal Poly were pretty miserable. Because I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life, the only thing I knew was that music was my passion. And on the side, my first years, I was actually teaching at some of my local high schools, helping out some of the music teachers that I knew who needed some extra help. But things started turning around after I changed my major my third year, just this past year, and deciding to switch to music. I originally didn't want to be at Cal Poly Pomona. I think because secretly I wanted to be at a school that had a really good music program. With that being said, I had Cal State Fullerton in mind as well as Long Beach. But what pushed me to attend Cal Poly Pomona was my parents' decision to not let me go anywhere too far, to only restrict me to a place that would be an easy commute for me, not more than 30 minutes away, which Cal Poly Pomona was at the most. I'm definitely a lot happier now studying music. You know, being my passion, I wouldn't trade my experiences with teaching and helping out my local schools for anything else.